Good morning, LinkedIn. Happy Friday, September 27th. One more business day after today in Q3 of 2024. How you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing great. It's the sun is shining, blue skies here in Florida after a terrible last night. So we're doing not too bad. Not we fared pretty well down where we are, but I know it's getting Georgia right now. I think Georgia and the Carolinas and all that area getting hit hard. So my
Yes.
thoughts are with them, and the storm surge is not good, not good. But that's not what we're here to talk about. There's enough media covering that.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have that perspective as we talk about, you know, some other maybe not so pressing things that if you listen to the LinkedIn echo chamber, it could be like life or death situation. Probably not
Yeah.
compared to things like hurricanes. So glad to hear that you're doing all right down there. But yeah, week after inbound, so week full of recaps.
Yes.
Inbound was super interesting this year from a content perspective. It's just like seeing them juggle all these different things as they build out this platform, like add a
Yeah.
new whole layer. Like George and I have been doing this customer platform hug, and like the whole mission of this first 4 episodes is like, all right, we're gonna set the foundation. We're gonna describe all the layers as HubSpot, put them out for us, and then we go to inbound, and there's a whole new layer. Like just throw it in there, Breeze AI. So we'll get to
Yeah.
that next month. Hopefully, Dylan comes by to talk to us about that. But then you also have like there's a content plus marketing hub, push. There is
Yeah.
the AI, and then there's the whole admin, smart CRM. I kind of put those hand in hand because that's what we're here to talk about. It's like that's where the real
Yeah.
work is done. It's easy to go talk about, all the tools that need that part to work.
Yes.
But yeah, so I wanted to get your thoughts on, as you were hearing this stuff roll out. I guess what was the most exciting thing, and also like what was the scariest thing from an admin perspective?
I think I would say the same thing applies to both. Like I was very excited and then immediately scared when more AI came out, and we kind of. I mean, I'm really happy that we're combining AI into this master product. Like I think that was a step that needed to happen. It was becoming very fragmented, and I was going to be surprised if that didn't happen this year. And then found I was like, we got to like this under an umbrella because like it's getting out of hand. I'm intrigued to see how the new like, and it's interesting because like we have AI in lots of different places in HubSpot. Like Breeze is combining a couple of things, a couple of core components that were separate that are now together. And I think it's interesting because you have things like Copilot, which is very much like a GPT inside your HubSpot. It's you have agents that are there designed to do tasks, and then you have intelligence, which essentially is Clearbit. And in a sad space that I think we all saw coming is going to replace HubSpot Analytics in terms of like that HubSpot data feed. And I already forgotten the name of the actual product, what it's called. But HubSpot Insights, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's replacing HubSpot Insights. Like that's going away. I think it's getting sunset at the end of October. So it's disappointing for me to see that because I'm like, that was a really cool feature of HubSpot in terms of it did this for you and you didn't pay, you paid for it by having an account with HubSpot. Including it now as part of a paywall and to intelligence. I get it. Like Clearbit has more value and there is a lot more data available to you and you can get a lot more information. But I primarily work in education, and it's actually surprising. I was messing around with intelligence once it launched, and it's actually worse for us than HubSpot Insights was. Like HubSpot Insights was pretty good. Like it usually classified education correctly, and we could kind of use it somewhat regularly. But like a lot of information in intelligence doesn't source from the same sources that we source from. And we're sourcing, and in a wild place, we're sourcing from public sources. We don't source from any sort of private tool or anything like that. And it's an issue I think education tech has always had, which is that a lot of our stuff is public and is government run. and it has limited, like the ability to pull in it from a technology standpoint is usually very low. It's a lot of exporting spreadsheets, it's a lot of exporting table data. There's not a lot of like direct connections into the government for obvious reasons. But but because of that, like, a lot of these features aren't really usable for us. Like there's no incentive for us to really kind of like go hard on like Breeze Intelligence, because like a lot of that data is not relevant for us,
Wow,
or is
that's very interesting.
very low. So I think it's for me, it's a little bit of a nothing burger. In that sense, I think there's more value in agents, and I think that's where, and clearly to me, I don't know about you, Chris. You were there. I was watching it on my laptop. You were there during that like sort of opening presentation, and besides the ever popular Dharmesh dad jokes that we all come to know and love, I think it was very interesting to see Dharmesh talk exclusively about agents and the power of agents and how agents are really going to be. I think that was the missing cog I felt coming out of Inbound 23 was, we're talking about AI, it's this big thing, and everyone was scared it was going to take our jobs. And I think now we're in a world where we're starting to see AI find its place and kind of like slot into business versus kind of be this kind of new overarching scary thing. I think agents are a very valuable tool, and I'm glad to see that HubSpot is exploring that heavily. And shockingly, to no one's surprise, Dreamforce was like, I think also last week, and they also were doing the same thing. So like when like HubSpot and then Zoho are on the same page and certain things, you're like, yeah, this is the direction we're heading in. I think there's a lot of value in more customized, more specific agent use cases than there are necessarily broad, like, oh my goodness, I think that sort of like the shine has worn off on, let me ask ChatGPT any question in the world and answer my questions. I think agents are going to start to replace a lot of the annoying tasks, time-consuming tasks, and the things, to some extent, those junior level positions that we have in companies and in operations and in administration and in HubSpot too. Like I think there's a lot of the stuff that these agents are going to be able to do that is going to take the load off of admins in a positive way, but also probably in a negative way, in the sense that knowing how to do that as an admin is a very good skill, even if you're not doing it all the time, because occasionally you have to go back and do it. And if we rely heavily on agents to do that and we're not learning those skills, it's going to become a lot harder to troubleshoot. And I think it's a very delicate line you have to run. I don't know how you feel about that when it comes to like sort of agent automation in that sense.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot to unpack there. I do think it's helpful because as you were talking about it out loud, it's like we needed to give AI and these tools like some kind of identity that we could start to position alongside us, and like, where are they sitting on the bus instead of there's a spaceship that we're moving to, nobody gets to go on it and the bus is gone, right? Like, so that was cool. And leave it to Dharmesh to kind of create this structure, because like I talked to a few people about, like, he launched like connect.com in 2022, and there was this whole backstory about community, and that was the way to go. And then AI happened, completely switched gears. But now we're back to like him creating a community for the agents, basically, which is super interesting. But it also helps, humanize them enough to say like they are a part of the workforce, and like because of that, like the balance of comparing like headcount improvements, like I heard that a couple times, and in one talk they said like 2 service bots were doing the work of 700 agents, right? But then 700 human agents. But at the same time, they talked about how challenging it was to train the AI agents, the AI bots that could do that work. And for me, and this is why I think it's apples to oranges in most of the situations where you compare headcount to what the AI is going to be doing, because in that process, you probably solved for a lot of bullshit. That was the reason you needed 700 people. Like maybe it should have been 200, like if your process was good enough, right? And that's where I think we should see that as a part of the value of AI is making sure that we do have the same context that humans needs, AI needs, right? So we're going to be upgrading processes, upgrading data, but let's keep that in perspective while we look at bottom lines and the value of the people that are involved, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said about customer experience, and I know we've talked about this before, which is like I come from a place of post-sale care and post-sale experience, and it's great to see AI come in. And I feel like it's one of the first things whenever we talk about like bots or things, like everyone immediately goes to support. And I'm like, tier zero support is a wonderful thing. I have been the user of tier zero support most of my life. I don't want to talk to someone most of the time. Like if I can't figure out why why this paint color on my wall that I refuse to change for some reason is the wrong color. It's a tier zero thing. It's like you go in, you get your answer, you walk away. But I think that we excuse that as that is all solution. All problems coming to a support team are that. And I don't think it's true. I think that a lot of times you'll have complex situations. You have complex things that come up that require a human who can have a little bit more higher lateral thinking to get through that problem. And AI is very good at providing solutions, but it's not very good at picking the correct one. Like it is more, I've always felt that support bots have always been something that's like, well, here's a couple of options that match your criteria. And a lot of times humans who are asking for help are not asking to make a decision. They want you to make the decision for them. They want you to say, this is the path forward you need to take. We're going to refund your card, or we're going to give you a credit, or we're going to do something like that. Suggesting those as options is not what they want to hear. They want you to make a decision. And I think that's where AI still has a long way to go in terms of getting to that level of state. But I think humans as a whole really still want that human connection. And I think we need to be very careful that we do not push this narrative to some extent of AI is going to replace, like you said, like 2 AI bots could replace 700 agents. Well, were those 700 agents actually providing any service? There's still value in keeping those human beings in play. There's going to be points where AI can definitively solve, but when it gets a fuzzy match, that's when you need a human to come in behind it and say, okay, reading into this a little bit more and getting a little bit more context, I know that they actually need this solution, and then being able to like filter that out a little bit. So I think it's going to be more, I see a lot of power in not presenting AI directly to a customer, but rather using AI agents to assist the human agent doing that work. And if it makes them run faster, you can still bring down your headcount. You can still process customers at a faster rate, but you're not necessarily making the customer aware of the use of AI in their process. And that's not, I don't think, hiding anything. I think that's just the way it's best designed.
Yeah.
Because it's not getting like rogue inputs, and like customers are random and do not ask the right questions.
Right.
And given that AI models learn from inputs, like, do you want your customer teaching it? Like, that's no different than like, and I hate to use this example, but like, it's no different than someone going like, I want it, like, I do it. How many times have you called like a credit card company? I'm not going to name a specific credit card company, but we all know who we're talking about. Call a credit card number and you're just like agent,
yes,
agent, like, or you're smashing 0 because you know that gets you through to someone. Like, if we train the bots, like if we train AI on that, like it's not going to be very effective. So I think there's a certain amount of like, we still need those humans to be like the front face of support, but that AI can assist the agent with their work versus assist the customer with the work. And I think that's a mind shift that needs to happen a little bit too, and see people actively do it. And I'm hoping that those companies that are in that space start doing that rather than just pushing self-serve chatbots directly to the customer. Because I think that's not the end-all solution.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's where, like, if you're looking, when I've talked to leaders in the past about, like, most of them have a good idea of the things that they should be doing and they're not doing. And so much of it relates to customer enablement and internal team enablement, right? And when you have this group of people, like they're doing low value activities, not because they're low value people, because you're asking them to do low value activities most of the time, like data entry, answering easy phone calls and easy emails.
Yeah.
And when you're thinking about this, and this is, of course, if you can be proactive as a leader, like that should be your first go-to for a win when you're thinking about AI can open up the space for those people to say, now turn into like enablement, managers creating, trainings and documentation, because they're probably going to be doing it for the AI to some extent as well.
Yeah.
And then enablement, like onboarding, like proactive customer success activities, like instead of being reactive with everything, that's going to be a huge value. And those people that, you might think of first to be replaced, I guarantee they have immediate value, or could be trained to have faster value than almost any other spot. And then, I love, so the third thing is like almost enabling the AI too, as we talk about it, right? Yeah. That includes monitoring. So if we could, like, what comes to mind as far as like you said, like if we rely solely on AI to do some of this stuff, especially like data cleanliness, like you're going to remove the ability of an admin to clean data, which is probably a bad idea. So I see the monitoring use cases and all the things they're doing with the data quality area. Like, which tools come to mind as far as, okay, maybe we've turned on Breeze. Like, how do we understand how much value we're getting from that, and if it's creating any problems? Also, like monitoring all the activity of, these agents. Like, which tools would you go to, or have you thought of in HubSpot as far as like, okay, I'm going to have to start using this thing a lot more, or figure out how I'm going to use this thing in a different way?
I almost feel like it's sort of probably like a very weird way as well. We as humans often work in organizations where we have like, I'm going to use a bunch of acronyms, which everyone hates. You have OKRs and KPIs, and you have this that we measure humans on. Are we doing that for AI? Like, are we saying like AI is I want AI, if my playbook goal for the year, and we just went through annual planning in my company, so that's why it's front of mind for me right now. But if we're talking about, we're setting this goal for our teams, and we're setting this goal for our business, and this goal for our operations, are we doing that same thing for our AI? Which is saying, like, is it providing, and if our goal is like we're going to spend money on Breeze Intelligence because it's a credit-based system. When are we using those credits? Are we using them on every lead that comes in? Because that's frankly a waste of money. Or are you using them when you get to someone who's like maybe an SQL, where it's like, this is someone that now I care about and I want to enrich as much as I can about this person. Do I say I do it right away, or do I wait until that person is an SQL for longer than 14 days? Whereas if your conversion rate of SQL to op is within 7 days and someone's sitting at 14 days in SQL, that's the point where you're like, I want to use Breeze Intelligence to figure out more about this customer. Find me their competitors. Who are they currently using? Like, that's when that becomes a valuable tool and becomes more useful in that environment. And I think that setting the expectation around, I want my AI agent, and let's just, enrichment is a good example for this. Like, if I'm saying I want my enrichment agent to enrich 80% of my lagging, stalling SQLs, you can measure that. You can say like, okay, if it's enriching these people, are we then seeing these enriched contacts convert faster? Or are we then, is that doing it what we need it to do? And I think that we have to set that expectation of AI can replace, and I always say this, AI can replace humans, because you could have a human that you say, I want you to go and enrich my data. So AI can replace that human, but we should not just we should hold it to the same standard as a human, which is okay, so I've had you go do this. Are we going to put AI on pips? Like, I don't know. Let me put my agent on a pip. Like, the worst case, he at least isn't going to go looking for another job at that point. So, like, are we setting that groundwork? I think there's very much a world, we talk a lot about, HR is kind of a dead term now. We use people operations because it's a nicer way to say that. But like, are we going to have, do we have AI operations within a company? Is that a division of your people ops team to some extent, where it's like, are they, I think that these are the conversations that a lot of companies aren't having yet. And there's AI kind of sits in like a compliance team world where it's like, is it compliant in terms of GDPR? Is it compliant in terms of like privacy laws, all that sort of stuff? But like, we're talking about that type of compliance. I think there's a room and place for AI to sit in, have some sort of like goals or, objectives it needs to meet to determine if it's valuable. So I think we're past the point of it's the shiny new tool. Like AI has now been out solidly for at least a year in most industries. Most industries have adopted AI somewhere. So like it's been out now for a year, or it's past the shiny phase. Now we need to start saying, okay, is this worth an investment in my company? Am I going to spend my dollars here instead of on human capital? Like and then if I do spend my money here, how am I getting my ROI? How am I getting that money back? So I think that's something that we're going to start to see people push for. It's an untapped market today. I think there's a definite need for management of AI in that sense, and people understanding how to, if we're training the AI and we're training the models a certain way, like are we doing the necessary steps to make sure they are providing the value they claim to be providing? We fact check people, we fact check politicians. Like, are we fact checking our AI? Are we fact checking that it's actually doing what it says it's doing? Is it in doing intelligence the right way? Is it getting me the right data? How are we fixing that? Like, to me, if it's sourcing Wikipedia, not that I think AI sources Wikipedia, but if I ask the Apple intelligence, I'm not going to say the other word because it will set off half my house. It will, it sources Wikipedia all the time as a source. Is that the source I want my business data coming from? These are the things we don't know yet, and I think that's the AI is a great tool, and it's going to have such value in your operations, even as an administrator. If you like bring it back to like as an admin, there's so much power in that. But are you doing the steps to make sure it's actually saving you time? Because the last thing you want to do is think this tool is going to like go fix this problem, and then 2 months later you come back and go, "What the hell happened here?"
Right.
Apparently you have a new state called QX. And you're like, "What?" like that's. I've seen that already, so I'm like, that's how I know it is the thing that can happen. So,
wow.
what are we doing to make sure that happens? I think that is where the discussion needs to start to move to, in some extent.
Yeah, because also like not only just for the PIP scenarios, but also like the first pass might not be great. You're like, okay, we're not going to use this part right now.
Yeah,
but it might be just like HubSpot as a platform right now. It might be infinitely better in next month, right?
Yes.
Like and I just like experienced that with Riverside in terms of like the first time I used it for clips. Earlier this year, which was like 3 months ago. I talk about like it's eternity, but like it wasn't great, right? I had to spend just as much time fixing it as I could have just going through the whole thing and clipping it myself. I just tried it again with an episode with George, and I just had to extend like 5 seconds on the end, and it was just like perfect. It titled it, and I think that's where with HubSpot or any kind of platforms that are built on the like open AIs of the world and all these other big models that are rapidly evolving, like understand that's going to impact, and make all these other tools better. Right. So keeping an eye on that or counting on somebody, like that's where like an AI manager of some sort should be a role in most companies very soon, if not already. Right.
If it's not someone in your compliance team today, it's going to be someone somewhere in your organization.
Yeah.
Sitting under probably your operations team. Like it's going to be, because the thing about it is tools are becoming easily accessible, and tools are so easy for like a sales rep. I'll tell you all the time, I always pick on sales reps. They're wonderful people, but sales reps love to just like eat up new tools and just go without thinking about the implications of what will happen afterwards. So I think it's really important to have, how are you managing AI in your company? How are you managing who has access to that? And like, it's funny because like I was just thinking about this today. If you haven't been in settings recently, there's that AI tab. And I remember Kyle bringing this up last year when AI just started, and like one of the big flags that every admin was like standing up asking this question was going, how do I turn this off? And it wasn't from a place of, I don't think it's ready. It was from a place of, I don't know if my users are ready for this. So like I need to like put some guardrails in place. And like looking at it now, it's still there. You can still use it. But there is no protections around who can use it. It is on or it's off. And I'm looking right now because I'm trying to see if that's changed recently, but I don't believe it has. Like I'm just gonna check one of my like team views for a second.
Yeah, No, I'll go
Yeah,
ahead
I'm
and
not. It's not
share it.
like I'm looking through right now. There's nothing by AI. Let's see if Copilot comes up. Okay, so you can turn off Copilot for certain features. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Copilot is the only one. So you can turn off Copilot at the user level, and if you use permission sets or enterprise, and use permission sets, you can do that as well.
Okay.
So that is there. But again, like that's great. But if you have Breeze Intelligence credits, anyone could use them. How is that being protected in the ecosystem? These are the things that I think admins are looking for now. Is that
Yeah.
AI is like any other tool? It needs to be used carefully and needs to be used in a very specific way. And I think that we need to start like talking about how do we make sure that people have access to the tools when they need it, but also don't have access to the tools when they don't need it, or could cause issues.
Yeah. No, for sure. How long has this tab been a thing?
The data sources one, I think that's new because it
Okay.
talks about agents. Like this is like brand new because I was like stumbling around the other day and I found it and I was like, hello.
Yeah. Because this is like the custom instructions as GPT puts it. Like,
Yeah.
I have been waiting for stuff like this, especially when you make like the first time you make a brand voice, like you make it and then you like can't. It's very hard to change it, and you don't know where to go to. Like, it was kind of a black box. So this is
with the improvements to the changes to Commerce Hub, not Commerce Hub, Content Hub. Content Hub holds a lot of this stuff, and Content Hub is honestly, if you're not like, and we are a company, we do not have Content Hub today. HubSpot's trying really hard to get us on Content Hub. Like they're throwing it at us almost to get us on there. There's a lot of AI tools inside of Content Hub, and one of them is brand voice. And like, setting that brand voice for your AI. So it's like if you're writing content, you want your AI to sound like your copywriter. You want it to sound like the voice you've crafted through LinkedIn messaging and white papers and blogs and things like that. That is there now. But being able to, like, this is the stuff that's really important to me, which is AI, like a lot of people were scared, like, is AI going to release my data? Because there's always the privacy concerns that come with that. But how is it using my data to make informed decisions? Which brings you right back to that whole, is your data clean? Is your data of good quality? And I think that AI will only be as effective as the data you put in the CRM, which goes back to that old eggshell of your CRM is only as effective as the data that's in it. We've seen saying that for years, and AI is not going to fix your data problem. I think everyone needs to understand that. It can help raise it. It could possibly make it worse. But if you're not doing something about it, like, now is the time to go fix your data quality issues. If you haven't done it, I think before you turn any of this stuff on, is respecting that is coming.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the primary sides. And again, this is why we talk about the basics, like this foundational stuff. And I kind of chuckled, like, if you saw me do that, like if I could just make these two things or these three things as big as possible. Like, if you don't have these things, which don't be surprised at how many organizations like have not defined an ICP, don't have clear marketing goals, and you ask different people in the organization what their value props are, then you're going to get different answers, right? And seeing this is where it's like, I love this line. You must add at least one product or service for the social media agent to work. It's like
that is just like, it can't tell you value props on a product if it's not got a product to sell. Like, it's, I think that is the key thing, is like, I think it's time to wake up to some extent and figure out your stuff. Like, we talk about ICP all the time, but I bet you 90, that's probably too mean, like probably 70 to 75% of people couldn't actually, and when I say that, like 70% of your middle to individual contributors could not tell you what your ICP is.
Right.
Like, your ICP should be blazoned to everything on everything you do. Like, it's, I think back to when I worked at a Fortune 100 company, and like we talked about a safety minute, and we worked in an office, like we were a manufacturing company, but we worked in an office. Like, the biggest issue was people tripping over power cables, so it always came up all the time. And I'm like, it was always front of mind, but it meant that you're always thinking about it. It always been impacting what you were doing. To the point became a running joke. We're like, oh, better put that power cable away. I think that same thing needs to happen with like things like ICP, where it's like, are you talking about it every day? Are you talking about with your individual contributors? Like, do they know what the ICP is? And some might go, well, CSM doesn't care because like they already have a ICP. But that's not true because not every customer you have is ICP. Some are what I refer to as ACP, which is average customer profile, which may not be the same as your ICP. Because you have those circles, you ideally want that Venn diagram, you want it to be a circle. But for a lot of companies, it does not start that way. It starts as two very separate circles, and there's a little bit of overlap. And sometimes you get closer, sometimes they push it away a little bit. Where like who you're actually serving and who you'd like to serve do not align, or there's minimal overlap. And that is, I think, super valuable lesson for any company to think about, especially leadership. Are you doing what's necessary to get those two circles to align?
Yes. Well, there's so much to talk about here. I'm so glad we found that page because I think that's worth an unboxing. We got lots of stuff that we're going to go into and keep this conversation going. So as you just go to that settings area, think about it a little bit, talk to your teams, find some opportunities, and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Take care, bro.
Bye.